I think you have to read a book all the time. Anything that has to do with personal development. I'm obsessed with leadership. So, in order to be a successful owner or a leader, you have to read, right?
Mhm.
I also believe that you have to have some sort of personal fitness goals. You know, your physical fitness is like your business card too, right? So when they see that and I get it, there's people that have health issues as well. We get all that. I'm not trying to say it's gonna be perfect. We're not in a perfect world. Um, but personal fitness is a very important thing. I think it's important for a lot of things. It gives you mental clarity. And of course, I think it's gonna keep you sharp. So when people see you, they're like, hey, I want to be with that kind of leader. They seem like they have it together.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe.
What's up, everybody? Mike Hickman here, founder of paintergrowth.com, and y'all are listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. And I have a exciting guest on today, Mr. Joel Mercado, who runs two seven-figure painting businesses in completely different states and has a great time doing it. So what's up, Joel?
What's going on, Mike? Thanks for having me on. Super
Yeah, man.
excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to pull some value out of you for the listeners today. I think there's a lot that people can learn about kind of how you manage things, how you organize your business, how you structure things so like nothing, not everything just like falls on you. Because I think as business owners, a lot of us are guilty with just kind of being the solution to everyone's problems, right? But
100%.
I think to get to a business like yours, you have to get above that, right? You have to let other people be responsible for problems so it doesn't all trickle down to you.
I agree. 100%.
Sweet. All right. Well, why don't we start with a little origin story action for a couple of minutes before we jump into it. So, how did you get into painting? Are you a painter? Just tell me how you kind of got into this whole mess.
Yeah. So paintings definitely wasn't my background at all. I come from a gym background, so I used to do pre-sales, and I was the guy that knocked on your door selling you a dream in a gym that doesn't even exist. It's still dirt. So at 20 years old, I was already in sales and really just helping building gyms open up brand new ones. So they're called pre-sales. So that was in Arizona, and then became a general manager of a store, and then became a district manager. So a lot of my experience is really helping people to get to their goal, which was weight training, weight goals, but really diving into understand the behaviors and the habits of why they got to where they got to and how they're going to get to where they want to. Right. So that was kind of the start of my career. And to then fast forwarding, I met a mentor. So, I have to give thanks to coaches, right? Coaches have coaches. I say this all the time. And I've done a lot of different things. I've been in the car industry, I've been in the gym industry. I used to own a dojo. A lot of people don't know. I used to train literally UFC fighters. I used to train Mesa PD, SWAT tactical training. So I have a really eclectic background of things I've done because I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, right? Like most people don't have that identity. They're like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to get into something? And how am I going to be successful in it, right? So I tried everything until I finally fell into painting. And that was from my mentor. My mentor he's been doing painting for over 20 plus years. And I'm pretty much mimicking what he does, right? He finds individuals that want to win, that want to run a business, and he wants to coach them and put a platform for them to be successful. So I noticed he owned multiple chiropractic offices, a lot of different things other than painting, but he kept saying painting was the stepping tool to his success. And I was like, wow, like I need to learn this, right? So 13 years later, here we are, we're partnered up. We own the business together. I learned a lot of the things that I do now based off of his principles, and I learned a lot of painting. So COVID happened. I kind of just came into the business right before COVID, and I just felt horrible. I was like, how can I teach these painters if I know nothing about painting? I'm a numbers guy. I run businesses. Like, I didn't even know how to order paint. I didn't know anything about paint. Like, it was so difficult. I was just kind of thrown in there like, yep, have at it. So when COVID happened, it was a great opportunity for me to step down in a sense, even though I was still managing the company. I was still doing paint orders. I was still managing multiple crews, but I got into the painter role. So I started out as a helper. So one of my foremen started teaching me from ground zero. I was like, I want to learn everything, like how to mask properly, how to do caulking, like why we do stucco patches the way we do stucco patches. Like, please teach me everything. And I saw something that was really in common. And a lot of my painters didn't know what a tip size was, didn't know why we use an enamel paint. Even though they were great at the application side, they still didn't have any knowledge of the actual paint and certain things. So that was concerning to me. I was like, you're a 10-year painter and you don't know these basic things. So I really got into like diving deep and really picking a lot of people's brains, understanding application techniques, became a foreman, ran my own crew while running the rest of the crews. And then after COVID, all of that knowledge as a painter now, I feel like really flipped into the success of the growth of the business, because I truly understood what my painters were going through. I truly understood how to do the application. And then I was able to relay those processes to my customers. So going into
You
that
basically
side
went
of
from
it,
you went from like salesperson, like professional salesperson, to painter helper, learning the skills from the
yes.
ground up, and then shifting that into starting your own painting business.
Well, I was already in the business, right? So I kind of, in my eyes, I felt like I started backwards, like owning the company and having zero product knowledge, having zero knowledge of the business, and just kind of going off of what my mentor was teaching me, like processes, systems. That was always easy for me. I'm a process systems guy.
Yep.
But not knowing anything about painting made it difficult for me, because I couldn't relate to my painters. I couldn't really problem solve when like, how can you be a production manager, go to a job site and not know what to tell the customer when there's a problem? Because you don't know what happened. You don't know what flashing means. You don't know that you're having bleed through. Like,
You definitely
basic
need enough
things.
product knowledge to be in a product
Yeah,
specific role like that. Absolutely.
100%.
So how did you go from that after COVID to like what level is your business at right now? You have 2 locations and they're doing approximately how much?
Yeah, so the one the one that I started with first, we're doing $3 million in sales right now, in gross sales. And that, when I first started in 2019, I believe, when I came into the company, it started in 2018. So they started the company without me. And then I got involved because I was really going to be the process guy. That was it. And we were probably producing about $25,000 a week at that time. And now we're between 65 to 70,000. And then in the summertime, that's where we get our most busiest. So we'll be producing anywhere between $80,000 to $90,000. And then in our slow season, we're between $65,000 and $70,000 per week in production. So, it's grown drastically since COVID. Because at COVID time, we were barely hitting $30,000 a week.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot at that time. So I look at that as a big gift for us.
What did you find was the most challenging thing in terms of scaling the painting business to the level that it's at right now?
I would say people, right? I went a different route. I noticed a lot of painters that I was hiring, they had their own principles, they had their own objectives, and they didn't align with me. And I'm a people's person. So I always say, hey, I hire people off personality, integrity, and principles. So I just wasn't meshing very well with these painters. So I started hiring people that didn't have painting experience. So there was a really big pain that I had to deal with, because it was a lot of training on top of producing, on top of running a business. So it was a really, I would say, 2 years of just strictly just focused on finding great people and training the heck out of them, like making sure they knew everything from start to finish. And now they're my top performing foremans, and they were coming from a non-painting experience. So we're finally at that point that I can be remote. I don't have to be as hands-on, because they learned from ground zero. And they have the principles, they know our process, and then they're teaching my new helpers. So I'm bringing helpers that have zero experience. So it's been really a blessing for us to do that temporary pain to have such a long-term gain. So
I think
now it's like
most
automatic.
people are kind of scared of doing that. I 100% agree. I think that's a great way to find talent. They don't have the bad habits that like an experienced painter was, but at the same time, you have to do a lot of training, a lot of personal development and people development in order to get them to that point. So what do you like? What does that training process look like to take someone from like zero experience? I'm hiring you because you have a great attitude, and you fit the culture really well. How long does it take, and what does the process look like to get them from that to a full-fledged painter?
That's a great question. For me, we always start off with a crew of 3 people. So you have your foreman, and then you have your helper who knows how to brush and roll. So typically we bring the new guy in, right? Or female, doesn't matter. When that new person comes in, the helper is the one that's teaching the basics, how to mask, how to caulk. We really stick to the basic stuff, just regular preparation. So until they get really good at masking windows and masking floors and knowing how to mask with the baseboard so we don't have any bleed through onto the floors, we have like a very basic program that they have to learn that. And I do everything in 90-day increments. So we do 90-day reviews, and then I'm watching them on a specific base, right? So I do have a production manager now that does all that. But at that time, before that, I would always just watch the progress, right? That way the foreman can continue moving forward. The helper is still able to bring them on, but they're always with each other. So I'm going to give you guys a tool that we use. It's called Duragi. I'm not sure if you've ever heard that term.
Yeah, I have.
Awesome. So we're coming from the same world, right? So demonstrate, right? Observe, re-demonstrate, assign a task, set a goal, and then inspect the work. So what a lot of people do, and they're horrible at, is they like to delegate immediately. And what we do is we talk about a coaching cycle, understanding where they're at in that cycle as you're coaching. So for every new skill they acquire, they start all over again. We can't just go right into delegation. So everything's done in 90-day increments. We give them a goal. Within a year, we want them to be able to know really well how to brush and roll, how to cut properly. And after that, put them on a program to become a foreman in the future. So depending on their skill sets, depending how fast they take on the things, we always say the student drives the learning. So it's up to them as well on how fast we can move them up in position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's when you see me looking away, like I'm taking notes. I'm not like checking.
No, yeah, you're good.
I like to take notes to like follow the conversation. So for, you have a good point there, and that is on like transferring skills using a framework. I think what a lot of people do is when they hire somebody, they do this, throw them in for a little bit, too quickly, or they do just like the demonstrate part of it of Duragi. So Duragi, just so everyone knows, is like a framework on how to like transfer a skill to somebody else. And so they maybe do like the demonstrate part of it, like, here, how's this? You do it like this, and then they'll go do it now, right? And then jump straight to delegate instead of, I think there's 4 quadrants of coaching, right? There's like high direction, low, what's the other one? Directive and independence. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, it's like high direction, low independence, and like this is the person you got to show them exactly what to do, and then they keep going through the quadrant until they're like completely autonomous and they don't need any direction, right? But people just come to that 4th quadrant immediately and wonder why their team fails.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I love to give that tip on what we call it. It's called the coaching cycle. So for the viewers, if they can imagine this, right? Think of like an analog clock, like a big circle. And inside that circle at 12 o'clock, it's called directive. Inside that circle at 3 o'clock, it's coaching. Inside that circle at 6 o'clock, it's called supportive. And then inside that circle at 9 o'clock, it's called delegation. So we use that clock and that cycle to understand where these guys are falling with specific skill sets. And then we have levels of those skill sets. And when you have a program like that internally, you're able to now measure, right? That's the problem. It's like, if you don't have that to measure and you're just throwing people in, they get frustrated, They feel like they're not moving up in the company, and then they're going to end up falling apart or just quitting, right? And think about all the time that you're doing. Yeah, that's it right there. I love that flow right there. So that's something that we utilize in our companies, right? Like, it's important to understand that just because I know how to brush and roll doesn't mean I know how to spray. Well, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to be like, hey, can you grab the sprayer and then go ahead and start spraying out those soffits? It's like, well, you just skipped a step. We have to start all over again. And then think about the directive side of it, right? When I speak about directive, notice I made you visualize a circle. Notice how direct I was and specific where in that circle, how to visualize those things. So when you have great leadership and you're able to teach your foremans like that, you really don't need to be there all the time. You don't have to be there all day. You don't have to micromanage, because they all speak the same language. And then you're able to problem solve no matter where you're at, because we all say the same things. We talk about directing. We talk about coaching cycle. We talk about quadrant matrix in Stephen Covey's book, which is quadrant thinking. So when you utilize those tools and you're able to teach that in your organizations, I mean, it's hard to fail, right?
How would you recommend someone get started on these training systems? Like, how can someone learn about this in order to implement them into their companies?
Well, now that I've met you, right, I think shameless plug, I think they need to find a program like yours, right? And the reason why I say that, I do coaching, but my type of coaching is completely different. And the reason why I say that is because I talk about habits. I train about behaviors. Understanding, fixing these things before you get these tools are what going to set you up for success. So if you have bad habits, no matter what my blueprint is, it is what it is. But having guys like you that have a full blueprint and a process and templates and things that can hold them accountable, I mean, that's my first step. I would tell people, like, hey, you need to find a program like that. You need to have something that's written out for you that you can follow, that it's like a fail safe, right? Like, it's quite simple. You follow these steps and you implement them, you're gonna win. It's pretty automatic, right?
How do you take that and go up to that next level where now you have people who are now transferring skills to your team and your new recruits?
Yeah, I like that question. So we meet every single week. So all of my leaders, I meet with them once a week. It's typically on a Monday, because we want to discuss numbers. We want to talk about, how did we do last week? What are we doing differently this
Are
week?
these GMs?
How do we change those?
Two GMs?
These are to my production managers, my business partners, my sales reps, anyone that's in a leadership role. They meet with me one-to-one and in group settings. So we hold each other accountable in that sense. So we talk about leadership training, but we also talk about, where did we fail in our process last week? Because a lot of people want to say, hey, I want to do this next week. And they're kind of like avoiding the truth, right? And if you don't speak about the truths, you're never going to make the changes to win. It's quite simple. So these meetings every single week, which we do not miss, whether I'm on vacation, whether I'm having a situation come up, we don't miss these meetings. It's on a weekly basis. So that's the accountability factor. I choose the right people that I feel like have great leadership skills already. I just teach them how to reteach them. So what I mean by that, just like we've talked about the coaching cycle, most of us already know these things. We just don't have an actual process to call it, to reteach it. And then I put them on a platform in our meetings to speak. So it's not always about Joel. It's not always that Joel's taking these leadership rules. I want them to step into that, because the more they keep teaching, the more they're actually learning themselves. So then they're able to now translate that and understand how to win and how to continue with those processes. But if it's always about me talking, you're going to notice I ask a lot of questions. So when I'm doing my coaching, it's always question after question after question, because I want to lead you to the answer versus telling you. So I hope that answers your question on that.
How do you identify where someone is on that matrix? Like, if you have a new painter, you've been working with them for a few weeks, like, do you use a skills inventory, a checklist, like just a gut feel? Like, how do you identify what level they're at and therefore what type of coaching they need?
Yeah, so I have an Excel sheet, and for every time I coach an individual, I write down notes and what I feel that they need to work on. So if you don't acknowledge those things and you don't have a process for that as well, how are you going to identify the issues? So when you think about quadrant thinking, it teaches you behavior. So it understands what's urgent, what's important, what's non-urgent important, what's urgent, not important, and then what's not urgent, not important, right? So do you have time wasters? Are they distracted? So you're listening to behaviors and you're watching body language and you're seeing, hey, where are they? So I can measure off of paint skill, but I'm also measuring off of behaviors and leadership skills. So when I write these notes down, I go, okay, where are they on this coaching cycle? Because the way we do this process, when I'm in directive mode, I'm 100% going to make sure that you watch me. So to make it easy for simplistic terms, if I do 10 houses, I'm going to mask all 10 houses and have them right next to me. I'm going to explain my process. I'm going to show them how I mask those windows, why I use that tape, right? Over and over and over again. They're not touching anything. They're watching me for those 10 exact houses, process over process, repetitiveness. Then when they go into the coaching side, where I'm not at 100%, 8 out of those 10 houses, now I'm watching them and I don't touch a window. But the last 2 houses, I redo it. Does that make sense? And when they get to the supportive role, it's 20%. I'm just here. I'm just here as a 20% support. So I'm leading them. I want them to come to me with questions where I don't do anything anymore. I'm just watching. And then I lead them to the questions I ask. And then when it gets to delegation, notice how I told you I'm very specific on my command. So as a leader, I also identify, hey, I can't just say, hey, go do this. I'm still going to be that specific. And then I'm going to ask them to recap what I said so that I understand that they understood exactly what I told them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of skills, right? You can't just be a leader and delegate. You have to know how to lead your people still and then get a recap. So do you mind if I give you a quick story real fast on what happened to me with a manager? Okay. So I was in the car industry, and this is a real story. I'm not going to say names, but this was in Arizona, and I was leading a team, and one of our managers goes, hey, go get me a slice of pizza. And my employee got him the slice of pizza, and our manager got extremely upset with him because he got him the wrong slice of pizza. So think about this. Poor leadership skills. And I'm going to tell you why. You have manager A and manager B. Manager A, where a great leader would say, hey, Joel, I want you to go down the street right off of Val Vista and Gilbert, right where that Quick Trip is. Yes, that gas station. I just want 1 slice of pepperoni pizza from in there. I'm going to give you my debit card. Here's my PIN number. And I want you back within the hour, and then you can take your lunch break. You see how specific I am right there? I cannot lead and set him up for failure and then think I have the right to be upset that he did my order wrong when I didn't give him those specific questions or answers or direction. Or you could be manager B and just say, hey, here's my card. Go grab me a slice of pizza.
But
right?
So counter to that, if you are okay with whatever outcome they're going to bring you back with, if you don't care what kind of pizza and you don't care how long it takes, then there's nothing wrong with that, right? But your expectations have to be in line with the format of direction that you're giving. It's like, okay, go. If you have subs, I'm going to keep going on this for a second.
I like this.
If you have a crew of subs, and because people use subs all wrong, right? People use subs. Hey, I got a house that I just booked. I need help painting it. Can you go paint this on 8th Street, 123 8th Street? I'm going to email you the work order. Can you go do it? Start on Tuesday. That's how most people use subs, right? But then they wonder why the subs completely botched the job, right? Because you didn't delegate it properly. Subs are just humans too, just with a different legal structure. So you need to operate with the same coaching methodology that you're teaching with subs, right? You want to trust but verify. You want to make sure that they're producing the type of job that you promised the homeowner. You want to make sure they prep the same way that you prepped, that they cover the floors the way that you want the floors covered, that they're not blowing up the homeowner's toilets because you don't want them to do that. We just had someone on the coaching call this morning say that they had a sub just do that. And they're like, what are you guys doing? So having those expectations and treating them like employees and doing the same thing, creating a goal, observing, setting goals, assigning tasks, and then inspecting. Like, do that with subs. Treat them like your
Yes,
employees in terms of how you train them and onboard them and get them up and running, and you're gonna have a much better experience.
absolutely. I love that you pointed that out because you're 100% correct. I treat subs like they're my employees. And I tell them, this is how you're going to do it if you're going to work with me. Notice how specific I am. I treat them like employees, but I also understand that there's a partnership involved in that. So I say, you're going to run our jobs exactly how we do things. And this is how. So my production managers, because in Arizona, it's 100% subs. I don't have any employees. In California, they're all W-2s. So I love that fact that you brought that up, because all of my subs are crushing it in Arizona. And the reason why is because they have structure, because my production manager holds them accountable just like they're an employee. Hey, what time are you going to be there? I expect you to be there at that time. But they love it. You know why? Because they're winning, because they're learning, and they're becoming better people and better painters, and they're successful. Why would they not listen?
And they're part of a culture.
100%. That they're
People want to be a
treated
part of
well
something.
too. Absolutely. We treat them so well, they don't want to leave. They're like, hey, I'm getting paid well, I'm learning, and I'm being treated well. Like, why would you want to leave? It makes no sense. And then they have work every week. Why do they need to go search for something else? Why would they want to leave us for that one job that might make them good money, right? And then they have no work for 4 weeks. So there's a lot of aspects to that to make sure you keep your subs happy as well. So I love the fact that you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love the structure that you have right now. Like, what would you say your main role is in your companies at this time?
I like to call myself the orchestrator. So I check in with everyone. I always start with leadership first. And honestly, my role as an owner now, I just want to make sure my people are happy. Like, I go to job sites still. Hey, how's everything going? How are you being treated? Right? When a birthday comes in, I love sending a video. Hey, Richard, happy birthday, man. I'm just thinking about you. I hope you're having a great day. That's where I thrive, right? And then I stop by a customer's house. Hey, how's everything going? I don't do paint orders anymore. I obviously watch everything. I see when the orders come in. I see where we're at on our budgets. I still watch all of our Excel sheets and make sure everything's within budgets. And I still coach and I still do our leadership training. But when I get out there, man, I just love checking on people, making sure that if there's something that's missing, I hop in it first before it becomes a problem, right? So if my employees are unhappy, I catch that, because I know my leaders aren't going to, even though they care, they're not going to care like me. I'm the owner. Let's be real. So that little touch, those little things that I still get to do that gave me more time, I feel like is helping our culture and our business and able to grow our business, because there's always someone attentive to all of these needs. And if there's an issue, I'm catching it before it becomes a big deal. So that's where I'm at right now.
Now, how would you recommend someone help become a little bit more of a proactive owner and leader to their team if they don't necessarily have a leadership structure in place? So most people who are listening, it's them plus a bunch of painters. Maybe they have a production manager, maybe they have a sales rep, but pretty much owner, painters, maybe an admin, some marketing support, whatever, like fairly simple business structure. But a lot of people get calls all the time whenever something goes wrong. Hey, we need paint. Hey, someone just spilt a thing. Hey, we're getting asked about touch-ups, like customers complaining or going to them, painters complaining, going to them. They're the answer for every question. And, the buck stops with them. So how would you recommend someone go from that to being able to be more proactive and not getting those, and like teaching your team to be more self-sufficient?
Yeah, that's a great question. We talk about roles, goals, expectations. I'm at the point right now, I say, unless you really don't know the answer, do not call me. And the reason why I say that is when you put someone in a position of, I need to make a decision, and they know I support them 120%, but they know I'm the guy too that I'll throw you in the water and I'll make you swim. I'll make you get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's the only way you're going to get through this. And I can't answer 40 calls. That's what it used to be. If you listen to my voicemail, it says, please leave your name, message, and time I'll get back with you within 24 hours, because I used to get so bombarded with so many calls that what would happen is I'm losing opportunities. I can't grow in another section of my business because I'm the one doing everything. So anyone that's in that position right now, first of all, is delegate to other people. So give them that leadership role. Hey, foremans, I need you to understand when there's a problem with a customer, you need to try to fix it first. After you do that, if you feel like it didn't work, then call me. Once they call me, now I go, okay, talk to me about the situation. What did you do? How did you do it? Why did you do it that way? Okay, perfect. I think that's the right answer. I still don't give them the answer. I give them the support to understand you already know the answer. I give them the faith and the confidence so that little by little, it gets to a point they don't call me anymore because they're so confident in what they do because of how I've been training them on every single call that I still don't give them the answer. I lead them to the answer. And it gets to a point, that supportive role now, they're so confident. They're like, man, I'm good. I don't need to call Joel. And then they get excited. Hey, boss, here's the situation. I solved it. They gave us a 5-star review. Man, that's awesome. I'd rather get those calls because I know that now my guys are getting better and better and better, and they need me less. That's the goal. The less you need me, I'm doing my job. That means I'm leading you properly. I'm giving people different roles in the company to take care of these situations, right? So that we don't need to be bombarded. So if you stay focused in your position and you can give these people these positional roles, right? And then responsibilities, you would probably have so much time on your hands, you don't know what to do with it.
But
And
it's
it's the
so much
truth.
easier to just solve the problems for them.
Of course it is. But here's the problem. They always depend on you, right? So I was just asked this week, if I were to leave, would the business grow? Absolutely. Because I've literally involved myself these last 3 to 4 years of just leadership training. Yeah, I'm telling you right now, in the beginning, you're going to spend so much time. But now I'm at a position now that I literally, sometimes I don't have anything to do. And I'm running 3 companies. That's what people don't understand, is that I have 2 painting companies and I have a pest control company in the East Coast. And all I do is just go, hey, where are we at? How are we doing, right? 80% of leadership is follow-up. So to go backwards to what you said, being proactive, that's me constantly getting ahead of problems because I understand their behaviors. I have notes on every single person. Hey, I noticed they don't send me stats on time. Why? Don't avoid that. And I ask that hard question because it's a core issue. I go, hey, why don't you send your stats out at 5 o'clock on time? Well, boss, and you listen to all the excuses, and then you have to drive deeper and let them understand they're just excuses. But it's a skill set they need to acquire, and then you need to give them the tools. If you don't give them the tools, they're forever going to depend on you, and you're forever going to be stressed out. So you have to give them the tools. You have to separate yourself as the owner. You have to separate yourself as the production manager or whatever role you have, and just say, how can I guide them to be better at what they do so that long term they don't need me? I don't want to be needed, to be honest with you. Like, that means I'm doing a great job. If I'm not needed, I'm doing my job. I'm setting you up for success.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's a good kind of like philosophy around that. Now I have two things that I want to get into today. So one, I want to get into, a lot of people are struggling with leads right now. What does your marketing mix look like?
Okay. I diversify a lot. So are you okay with like what platforms I use?
Yeah, there's like, what's the whole marketing mix look like? What's like, where are most of your leads coming from? Like, people are just always super interested in that.
Yeah. So I learned the hard way, right? I spent year 1 a lot of money on just Angie's List and like Home Advisor. Those were like my only 2 sources of leads. And wow, think of the opportunity cost, right? And when I talk about that, what happens, I'm paying a receptionist to purely call back for credits, right? And some contractors don't have the time or an office to do that. So they say, wow, Joel, like I'm spending like $1,000 a week and getting 0 leads really on my estimate book, right? And I'm like, I understand that because most of them are horrible and you're not getting credits and then you're spending for nothing. Like I understand where you're coming from. And now I'm spending someone full time literally to just keep track of credits to make sure I'm not losing money. Well, think about that. I'm paying a full-time person just for that practically. So I was like, I need to change this mindset. So when we would have slow seasons, that was the other thing. I'm like, wow, I only have two forms of lead generation. This isn't working for me. So currently to date, I'm on Yelp. So I do Yelp advertisement. I do Facebook advertisement. I do Google advertisement, Angie's List, Home Advisor. I also do BBB, which is Better Business Bureau. I also do some home magazines, so like luxury homes. I'm in magazines as well. And we do out here, it's called Money Mailer. Some other places it's called Valpak.
Yeah.
So the reason why I say diversify is I spend 10% of my gross sales. So if my goal is $250,000 a month, well, then it's $25,000 a month in marketing. And then what I do is I track all of my leads. So I know what's going on at all times. What's my sales rep's success rate? What's his closing ratio on what lead generator? So that way I know, hey, if I need to bump this one up because he's at a 60% closing ratio versus Angie's List is 30 or 40%, why would I spend more money there? But listen to that, right? I know the data where most business owners don't, right? So marketing is number one. I never save money on marketing. I actually spend more money on marketing, and I want to be everywhere. I want you to see me everywhere. So that way, we have trucks, yard signs. I spend money on all of our, graphics for the truck wraps. So when someone sees us, they're like, man, Joel, I saw you on Facebook. I saw your truck outside. I saw your yard sign. I saw, I'm freaking everywhere. Like, I want to be the number one guy. So that's why I diversify that way.
What's how much are you spending a month on marketing?
So 25,000 in San Diego, and we're spending 15,000 in Phoenix right now a month.
Okay, and so that's bringing you pretty much, it sounds like about a 10x ish return.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing very well. It's I learned that the hard way is you have to market. It's just in this industry. Remember, I come from a gym industry. So we talk about EFT, which is electronic funds transferred. In a perfect world, residual income, you can rely on that because you know what money you got coming in next month, right? Because you have a membership base. So if I have 100 members at X dollars, I'm guaranteed X dollars. But when you're in the painting world, the moment you say, hey, I need to cut back by $2,000, you could say goodbye. Like, in my eyes, that is a wrong move. If you're trying to save on marketing, but yet you're still trying to grow, that just makes zero sense in my mind.
Yeah, that's like when the economy slows down, people slow down on their marketing spend, which I guess, like you said, makes no sense.
Yeah, I create my seasons, my friend. So I tell people all the time, you create your seasons. There's no slow season in my world. I don't believe in slow seasons. I believe in spending more money to create the season so that I can get through that quote unquote slow season. So if I know that it slows down historically, I'm going to spend more money in those months, and then I'll go back to my normal ad spend on my busy months. But notice I didn't say I save money. I go back to the normal budget. So that's how I do it.
Quick little story. I recently spoke at a franchise event, and the COO went up and did this opening remarks in front of dozens of franchisees, and basically had a projection of the economy. And it's the economy slowing down. Everyone's tightening their belt buckles, so expect things to be slower. And I was just like, internally, I'm just like, no, like, you're giving everyone an excuse as to why their business is going to be slow. Like, we should not be thinking like this. We should be thinking about, okay, if this is happening to the economy, everyone's zigging, so we got to zag. We got to double down, and let's make this the reason why this is going to be the best year ever.
100%.
Like, absolutely, killing me inside. I'm like, no, don't externalize.
Yeah, well, that's a big paradigm shift, right? A lot of people, you got to remember, we're programmed to be that way, right? Everything we see, the news and all that stuff, it's constantly just shoving that agenda in our minds. And here's the reality: is when you change your perspective, right? When you take it back in the gym industry, they call it the X factor for us. It's taking this from the back of your mind here and bringing it to the forefront and changing your whole thought process, right? And they always say the most people that become wealthiest is they take advantage of the time that it was slow, the time where everyone gets in that scarcity mentality. And that's where they prosper. And I looked at it that way too. When COVID happened, everyone panicked. I got excited. I was like, "Woo, there's a lot of opportunity here." And guess what? People are closing. I got my best painters from that.
I think there was the most billionaires created in the history of the world during COVID, something like that.
Yep.
The largest transfer of wealth of all time. And it's because of, I think Warren Buffett said it, be greedy while others are fearful.
Yes. You win very well at that time frame. Yes.
Yeah. So how do personal habits come into play here?
Oh, I like that. Now you're getting the space I love.
Yeah, I thought we hit your expertise here before you wrap up.
Yeah. So this is something that I like to share more often, and I think a lot of people don't talk about enough, is mental health, right? Um, we all struggle with certain things for however long amounts are, and I truly believe our mind is like a computer. So the programming of our background and where we grew up starts to define certain things in your life. And, those personal habits are created of a story that you've created. So my job now is to rewire and re-give you a whole new story. So, Tony Robbins says it best. He says, life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. So if you can change your mindset like that, you're going to change your personal habits. You look at opportunities now, right? So your personal habits, like I said again, right? If an owner were to come to me in a painting company, the first thing I'm going to ask them is say, hey, why haven't you seen growth in the company? Why haven't you seen growth in whatever it is, right? And they're going to tell you every excuse on the side. It was the economy. I had poor painters, or whatever the case. The increase of paint
Customers weren't
happened 3
closing.
times.
Yeah.
All of that. And all I heard in that whole conversation was, you're not able to hold yourself accountable to make the changes for growth, right? So everything's my fault. In my organization, no matter what situation it is, it's always my fault, because that's how I grow. And it forces me to change my habits to make sure that everyone surrounded by me is going to win. So the more I'm focused on that, to change my personal habits, I'm going to win. There's no way I'm going to lose. I just have that ingrained in my mind because I'm growing, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I love how you say painter growth. Like, how do you grow? Well, you got to change habits. You have to have processes and systems, and you have to acknowledge where you're failing.
You know what? That's so important. And I mean, personal accountability is really everything, right? Oh, the economy's slow. Oh, my neighborhood sucks. Oh, whatever. All these things are against me. And until you realize that every single thing in your business is your fault and your responsibility at the exact same time, like that's when you'll really become truly free. Like a few weeks ago, I had a teammate or one of my team members, staff. He was working on this project and like completely botched it. And it was not at all what we had talked about. And it just like ended up costing like weeks of work and, thousands of dollars. And instead of like getting upset at him, I was like, okay, I'm sorry that gave you unclear expectations. Like, this is my fault. You're not in trouble. Like, this wasn't clear enough from the outset. Like, let's see how we can improve this for next time, and just kind of chalk it up as an L, right? L for loss and L for learning experience. So, I mean, everything is involved. If a painter screws up, unless you've taught them like several times, and the expectation is very clear, for the majority of it, it's the owner's responsibility.
100%. And I teach that with my leaders. Think about that. The more and more you have people that hold themselves to that standard, man, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And it changes your whole organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the, how would you say, like, personal habits that you think every successful entrepreneur should have?
I think you have to read a book all the time. Anything that has to do with personal development. I'm obsessed with leadership. So, in order to be a successful owner or a leader, you have to read. right?
Mhm.
I also believe that you have to have some sort of personal fitness goals. You know, your physical fitness is like your business card too, right? So when they see that you and I get it, there's people that have health issues as well. We get all that. I'm not trying to say it's gonna be perfect. We're not in a perfect world. Um, but personal fitness is a very important thing. I think it's important for a lot of things. It gives you mental clarity. And of course, I think it's gonna keep you sharp. So when people see you, they're like, hey, I want to be with that kind of leader. They seem like they have it together. And then understanding family, right? Those principles of family, I think it's important that you have balance. And, in my world, you never have 100% balance because you're constantly balancing. But, I think date nights are important. So carving out time for your loved ones is extremely important, and identifying that, and then fueling your body, right? So what you eat, what you bring in, right? All that's important. I think for you to thrive in this world now, you have to treat your body like it's a Ferrari. You have to treat your mind the same way, right? And then the last thing is, I would say, even if you're a leader of your organization, always have a coach and a story. And the reason why I say that is because I have like 5 or 6 coaches. I have business coaches. I have a mental coach who does hypnotherapy once a month with me. I have a fitness coach that does all of my macronutrients, and I'm horrible at it. That's why I hired him. Like, I don't want to be an expert in all these fields, but I need to be held accountable to be as successful as I want to be. I'm nowhere near where I'm going to be. And in order to get there, I had to hire all these coaches so that I don't have to overthink it. I think about my organizations, and that's where 100% of my brain power goes. And I let all my other coaches hold me accountable for everything else and put that process for me so that I don't fall short of these other goals, right? So I think a coach, mentor, for the rest of your life, you should have one. And I say that because I truly believe in it. And I think that's going to keep you successful.
Huge. So basically 5 things. Books, always be reading a book. Fitness,
Always.
got to take care of yourself. I like to think of that fitness as like your external give a shit a meter, right? If you give a shit about your body, and yourself, you're probably going to care about the customer's home. Being in shape, you have like an air, like a confidence about you, right? It's
Yeah.
big. Family, huge. Eating healthy, you don't grab the double cheeseburger every day for lunch, even though it's $1.99. Like, it's worth it to, pack a salad or pack a sandwich, like pack some good food.
Yes.
And yeah, always have a coach. I have 2 coaches right now, 2 business coaches, one specific to sales and one kind of general business. And like, even the other day I was on a call with them and they didn't really know, like, I felt like things were going pretty good, but we started talking about it and we found just like a huge gap, a huge blind spot that I had. And we're like, wow, I can't believe this hasn't been addressed yet. And so we started diving into it. And for like 45 minutes, we just like dove into it, tore it apart, came out with a plan that I would have never done without this coach, without that call.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
huge,
awesome.
Any for people who don't read a lot, I mean, listen to podcasts. We're going to attract some people here who are, more on the reading side of things versus not. What's typically your first like business book that you recommend people get into to like get into business books, whether it be Audible or physical?
It's the same book I was first presented when I was 20 years old, was 1 Minute Manager.
Ken Blanchard, classic.
Yeah. I think that was a great book to start. It's small. It's
Takes
easy.
like 7 minutes to read.
Yeah. Like, it's a good start, right? Notice I don't want to overwhelm you. So I'm like, hey, start with something simple. Get that win and be like, wow, I read a book. That's starting to create a better habit, right? So 1 Minute Manager would be the first recommendation.
I agree with that guy. Everyone, just so you know, like, wonderful book to get started with if you're not a big reader. Easy to read, but like story-based, great lessons out of it.
Yeah, man. And I think the next one, well, I wouldn't say in this order, but at some point, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey. I would say 100%, but it's not, because I take a lot of things from other books, but the majority of what I teach is from that book alone. I truly believe in the principles of it because he talks about being principle centered. Some people are money centered, family centered, and understanding when you're principle centered, that is your compass to make the right decisions. So then it allows you to open your mind to make better decisions in your business. So I really truly believe it. Start with those two books first, and then look up John C. Maxwell, get into his leadership books, and then start implementing that. Here's the cool part. Owners, if you have zero experience of reading these books and you read them and implement it in your organization, watch how much your business grows. I promise you, like when you do 21 irrefutable laws of leadership and they talk about the law of the lid and understanding the limits that your leaders are putting and tapping their minds and themselves, that alone's a lesson. You don't need to be an expert at it. You can reread what it says and then ask the right questions, lead your leaders to it, and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on that topic? It's going to unlock things. These books are like personal mentors. So that's my opinion on that. I think if you follow those first three to start, it's a good start for your business.
I would also just like remind people that it's not about like the quantity of books. You know, you see people's like, oh, I read a book a week for a whole year. Like, look at me. But I'd rather see someone read one book like 5 times and really like something like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You got to read that a dozen times in a year and get something different out of it every time.
Every time. Yeah. Every time. I think I've read 21 Irrefutable Laws. I think I'm on number 9, because what I do, part of my coaching is I make them read 1 chapter a week. Like, it's, if you're a part of my group and you're coaching with me, you have to read. And we go over that chapter and then we dissect it. And then we talk about core issues and whatever situation you're going through. So these books have been, I read 7 Habits. It's part of my coaching. 21 Irrefutable Laws. I read those 2 books a million times already, right? Like, because I go over it every single week again and again and again. And it just unlocks more of a deeper understanding for me. And I agree with you with that. Like, don't read a million books. Read that one over and over again, and it'll unlock so many things for you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your business goal for this year, man? Where do you want to bring these businesses to?
Well, you know, honestly, right now we're shooting for like 3.5 in gross sales. I kept it pretty simple this year because I have different objectives this year. I'm not so focused on wanting to have massive growth. I'm more focused on having internal massive growth. What that means is, how do I fine tune them to be ready for 5 million? Because come 2025, we're going from 3.5 to 5. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I already have the plan. So what people don't understand is we're in 2024 and it's still January. I'm already thinking of 2025. Like, I'm already like, I need to prepare my guys this year in order to support $5 million goal. That's the first step. So it's changed my mind and my processes this year in highly training, getting involved, finding more programs to help my team out. So it's not just me, because the reality is I don't want it to just be me. I want other people to step in those roles. Same thing in Phoenix. We just bumped them from 1.2 in their first calendar year to 1.5. Why? I don't feel that they're ready to do 2 million.
Yeah.
Do they have the skill set? Probably. But I feel like I'm going to have more of the opposite effect of, oh, hey, I did 2 million this year, but my team's stressed out. They have skill sets they haven't acquired yet to do 2 million. Why would I do that to my team? So I'm very conscious about that. And I share that because some people are so attached to the number versus understanding what that's going to do to your business. I think it's important to understand, think about the internal side first, and everything else will come. So those are my goals on the business. And, you know, thanks to you and a lot of guys in this community, I've been under a rock for the last 5 years because I really wanted to become an expert at what I do with the painting. My other goal this year is to be more out there to give as much advice I can in the painting world. It's an awesome community, and a lot of people don't know me yet, right? So I really want to get out there and show them I'm extremely passionate about business and people winning. Like, whatever I can do to help, I just want to be a resource and teach. So those are my 3 main goals right there.
Love it, man. Well, you're super easy to talk to. You clearly have a wealth of knowledge, and I'm feeling like you're probably going to be a regular on this channel. So thanks for your time, man. And I look forward to chatting again in the future.
Hey, man, I feel blessed. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.